If you had to sacrifice something to build a Hindu temple, what would you do? Would you mortgage your house to build a temple? What exactly is a Hindu temple? What makes them different than a church or a mosque? What is the secret that inspires us to sacrifice everything for our temples? Let's get into it. At its very essence, a Hindu temple is the physical home of a deity. That's why Sri Ram having a home in Ayodhya was so important. For Hindus, deities are the real manifestations of the energies that pervade the universe, and the temple serves as a connection point between the deity and the surrounding physical environment. At the center of the temple is what is known as a Garbhagriha, which literally means womb house. The Garbhagriha is where the Murti of the deity is placed, and this typically faces east. Sitting on top of the Garbhagriha is a dome structure. In North India, this structure is called the Shikhar, which means peak or summit. The Shikhar represents Mount Meru, a special mountain mentioned in the Puranas that connects everything in the universe. Just as Mount Meru links the heavens, earth, and the underworld, the Shikhar links the temple to the deities, to the physical surrounding. The entrance to the temple is known as the Mandapa, and depending on how big the temple is, this can vary in size. Bap Swami Narayan is well known for having quite immense temples around the world, and a large part of this immense size is the extensive Mandap area. Another distinctive feature of the temple is the pathway around the temple or deity, which allows individuals to do pradakshina, or what is known as walking around in a clockwise direction. Growing up as a kid in North America, I used to hear all the time that Hindu murtis were representations of the divine, and the murti is a symbol. And I always used to remember feeling slightly confused hearing this explanation. If it is just a representation of the divine, then can't I just stay at home and pray? As I got older, I realized that this explanation was commonly used to make Hindus fit into a Western mindset. And that's a mindset where idol worship is seen as inferior, something to be made fun of, as something that we shouldn't be doing. As I got older, I had to purge my mind of that thinking, and I forced myself to look at the Hindu temple differently. But how exactly is a Hindu temple different from a Christian church or an Islamic mosque? And why have Hindus placed so much importance on reclaiming their temples? Many people today understand the Christian church as a building, but this is not the biblical understanding of the church. The word church is a translation of the Greek word ecclesia, which is defined as an assembly or called out ones. The root meaning of the church is not that of a building, but that of people. The church that we see today, then, is the building for people to gather that accept Jesus as their Savior. For Muslims, on the other hand, a mosque or a masjid is a special place where Muslims go to pray and show respect to God as defined in the Quran, which they do 5 times a day. While it is always encouraged to visit the mosque for weekly prayers, it isn't a necessary requirement. To a Hindu, the temple itself is the manifestation of the deity, and temple architects have spoken about this in texts known as the Shilpa Shastras, where the deity himself is the temple. There are various rules on the design and the architecture that are followed to ensure the energies of a temple all resonate at the correct frequency. Visiting a temple allows the energy of the deity to rub off on you. Don't you experience something like this when you visit the beach on a quiet morning? There are energies to physical spaces, and the temple is no different. For myself, growing up in Canada, my life revolved around the temple. My father, who passed away this past summer, was the founding president of the Ram Mandir located in Pickering, Ontario, about 30 minutes east of Toronto. The building of a temple is not something that comes easy, and anyone who has done it will say that it is the will of the deity. His inspiration came from a vision he had of Ma Durga standing in front of him, instructing him to build her a place of worship. During the construction phase, he mortgaged our family house because the bank wasn't giving money to pay contractors. My father was a blue-collar worker, a millwright mechanic by trade. He worked with his hands. He wasn't a rich businessman. He was a simple man who believed in sacrifice and believed that temples needed to be built. The Kothari Brothers gave their life for the Ram Mandir movement in Ayodhya. Tragically, on November 2nd, 1990, the government ordered the police to open fire on the Kar Sevaks, and both brothers lost their lives. In the diaspora, wherever Hindus ventured, temples were established as homes to our deities. In Trinidad, the temple in the sea is one such example. This temple's origin traces back to Siodas Sadhu, an indentured laborer from India who settled in Trinidad in the late 19th century. Sadhu began building the temple in 1947, but local authorities kept destroying the temple, citing land ownership issues. Sadhu persisted, eventually relocating the temple to a small island he formed near the village of Waterloo. Sadhu carried bags of dirt and stones on his bicycle to the site and gradually expanded the island and constructed the temple on it. I'm sure throughout the world there are many stories that are similar to the ones that I've shared with you. Let me know in the comments what your story is. We sacrifice to build temples because we want the energy of the deities to become a real presence in our lives. After repeated years of worship, those physical spaces become energy centers. That's why we fight to reclaim our sacred sites and rebuild temples. That's why Hindus in the diaspora establish new temples, so that future generations can benefit from temples and the benefits that they bring to a society. In 2024, however, what is the state of our Hindu temples around the world? India has many issues that need to be addressed. Did you know that Hindu temples remain in the control of state governments, but churches and mosques do not? This entire idea is ludicrous. Our communities here in North America have other challenges. Most temples are frequented by the baby boomer generation, but millennials have overtaken that generation as the largest demographic. But I don't see them coming to the temple. Other young Hindus have also had their share of experiences that are also worth sharing. The Bhavani Shankar Mandir, located in Brampton, Ontario, is one of the newer temples established in the Greater Toronto area. This temple is led by Pandit Hardat Ashwat of Guyana, who has dedicated his life to serving our community. I reached out to his younger kids, and they agreed to share some of their experiences growing up in a temple environment.
For example, taking part in cultural activities such as Kathak dancing, playing the harmonium and singing. It has allowed me to build confidence within myself. It has also helped me to develop leadership skills because within temple, taking on these responsibilities and having this time management is really effective for future endeavors as well.
Growing up in a Mandir environment is very important because it has allowed me to gain an appreciation for God. You don't get the same feeling elsewhere as if you just do puja in your home. Everything is specialized and fine-tuned towards feeling the presence of God and making sure that a connection is felt and your devotion grows.
We have some work to do. A temple is not a church. A temple is not a mosque. A temple is a home for our deities, and we have a duty to preserve them. Please watch this other video that I have over here, and I'll be sure to catch you in the next one. Om Shanti.